sister sabotaged my job interview. The interviewer was her ex-husband, and he hired me immediately. My phone buzzed for the third time in my palm, and I watched the little blue email banner slide across the screen like it was moving in slow motion. Interview cancellation confirmation. My stomach dropped so hard, I actually grabbed the edge of the reception desk to steady myself. The lobby around me was all glass and marble and soft corporate music. People in suits gliding past like they belonged here, and I suddenly felt like a kid who'd wandered into the wrong classroom. The security guard had just handed me a visitor badge with my name printed wrong, and the ink was still warm when I looked down at it and thought no. No, no, no. I forced my thumb to open the message. Per your request, we have canceled today's 10 a.m. interview, per my request. My mouth went dry. I hadn't requested anything. I'd been here 10 minutes early, with my hair pinned back and my resume folder clutched so tightly my knuckles hurt. I turned the screen toward the receptionist like she might be able to fix reality if she saw it. "Hi," I said, and my voice came out too bright, too shaky, like I was trying to sell her on the idea that I wasn't about to cry. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm here for the 10 o'clock. The receptionist's smile didn't change, but her eyes flicked to my phone, then to her monitor, and I watched her fingers move on the keyboard, fast practiced. "What's your name?" she asked. I told her, and she hummed softly, the kind of hum that means this is going to be annoying for me. "Yes," she said, tilting her head. "It shows you canceled at 8:41 this morning." My throat tightened. 8:41. I had been on the train at 8:41, staring at my reflection in the window and practicing answers in my head. The receptionist looked back at me with polite finality. "I'm sorry," she said. "We can reschedule." Reschedule. Like this wasn't the only shot I'd had in months. Like I hadn't spent all night ironing my blouse because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Like someone hadn't just reached into my life and flicked the off switch. It was supposed to be a simple Tuesday interview. That's what I kept telling myself the week leading up to it. Just an interview, just a conversation, just show up and be normal. I'd been laid off 2 months earlier, and every day since it felt like trying to climb a staircase that kept turning into a slide. I've been applying everywhere. Marketing coordinator roles, admin roles, anything with benefits roles, getting the occasional automated rejection and the occasional ghosting so complete it felt personal. When I finally got an interview at Redbridge Partners, one of those glossy companies you see on LinkedIn with people smiling and matching headshots, I nearly screamed in my tiny rental kitchen. I call my mom. I call my friend Danny. I even considered calling my sister, Tessa, because some sick part of me still wanted her to be happy for me like a normal sibling would be. I didn't, and thank God for that instinct, because by Tuesday morning I'd learned that Tessa didn't just want to win at life. She wanted me to lose. Tessa has always had this talent for turning the air in a room into something you can't breathe. She's 2 years older than me, which in our family might as well be 20. She was the first everything. First grandchild, first to get a boyfriend, first to move out, first to get married, first to post those stage couple photos with captions like "my forever." Growing up, she was the one teachers adored and cousins copied, while I was the quiet one, the sensitive one, the one who reads too much. Tessa liked having a sidekick, but she didn't like having a competitor. If I did well at something, she'd either downplay it, "it's not that hard," or one-up it, "wait until you see what I'm doing." If I had something good happening, she'd find a way to step in front of it like a human eclipse. When she married Ethan, yes, that Ethan, it felt like she'd locked in the final achievement badge. Ethan was the kind of man who looked like a career. Neat hair, expensive watch, calm voice. He'd been older than her by a few years, already climbing some corporate ladder while she posted boss babe quotes and planned her wedding like it was a Netflix production. I was in my early 20s then, still figuring out how to be an adult, and I remember thinking Ethan seemed normal, quiet, like he didn't feed off attention the way Tessa did. At family dinners, Tessa would squeeze his hand like she was reminding everyone he belonged to her, and he'd smile politely and ask me how work was going in this genuine way that made me feel seen for 5 seconds. Tessa hated that. She'd interrupt, redirect, steer the spotlight back to herself like a reflex. Their marriage didn't last. At the time, I pretended to be shocked like everyone else, but if you'd been in the room with them for 5 minutes, you could feel the tension under the tablecloth. Tessa loved control. Ethan loved calm. You can't control someone who refuses to play the emotional games. When they divorced, Tessa rewrote the story so thoroughly you'd think Ethan had been caught robbing banks. He was emotionally abusive, she'd say, eyes wide, voice trembling on cue. He made me feel crazy. She'd cry to our mom, to our aunties, to anyone who would listen. But then she'd show up at events wearing the same perfume he once complimented and smile too brightly when someone mentioned his name, like she was performing a victory lap. She didn't just want him gone. She wanted him gone and still orbiting her, because that's how she measures worth. After the divorce, I tried to keep my distance from the wreckage. I wasn't friends with Ethan. I didn't message him. I didn't take sides, because in our family, taking sides means becoming the next target. I just existed. I went to work. I paid rent. I tried to have a life that didn't revolve around my sister's moods. But Tessa still tracked my life like it was a rival scoreboard. When I got promoted last year, she made a joke at dinner about how admin jobs aren't real careers, even though I wasn't admin and she hadn't held a job longer than 6 months since the divorce. When I got laid off, she didn't say, "I'm sorry." She said, "Well, maybe it's a sign you need direction," like she was a motivational speaker and not my sister. So when I got the Redbridge interview, I didn't tell her. I told Mom, and I asked Mom, carefully, to keep it quiet. Mom promised. Mom also promises she won't buy more plants, so you know how that goes. The night before the interview, I slept like garbage. I kept waking up and checking my phone like the email might vanish. At 2:13 a.m., I was wide awake, staring at my ceiling, running through interview questions like I was cramming for an exam. Tell me about yourself. What are your strengths? Describe a time you handled conflict. I practiced smiling my bathroom mirror because I'd read somewhere that people can hear a smile in your voice, and I was so desperate to be hired that I'd do literally anything, including audition for the role of pleasant, employable human. Tuesday morning, I left early. I wore my one good blazer and heels that made my feet hurt, but made me feel like I belonged in a building with security gates. On the train, I went over my notes, company values, recent projects, keywords to sprinkle in like seasoning. When I arrived, I stood outside the glass tower for a minute and breathed in the cold air until my lungs stopped panicking. I walked inside. I signed in. I sat down. I texted Danny, "I'm here. Pray for me." Danny replied with 12 fire emojis and "You got this." I smiled, even though my hands were sweating. And then my phone buzzed. The cancellation email. The receptionist telling me I'd canceled at 8:41. The exact time I was on the train, alone, not speaking to anyone. My brain did that thing it does when something doesn't make sense. It searched for the simplest explanation. Maybe HR made a mistake. Maybe someone clicked the wrong button. Maybe the interviewer had an emergency and they blamed me to avoid looking disorganized. I opened my sent emails. Nothing. I opened my calendar. Nothing. I opened my messages. Nothing. And then, because the universe apparently likes dramatic timing, another notification slid in. A text from Tessa. "How's your little interview going?" Face blowing a kiss. My blood turned to ice. I stared at the message so hard it blurred. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard, trembling. How did she even know? How did she? The receptionist was still smiling politely, waiting for me to accept the reschedule like a good little inconvenience. I looked down at my phone again and saw the timestamp on Tessa's text. 9:58. 2 minutes ago. Like she'd been waiting for the moment I found out. I walked away from the desk before my face betrayed me. I crossed the lobby, heels clicking too loud, and ducked into a quiet corner near a fake plant wall and a corporate sign that said "Innovate." My whole body felt tight, like I was holding myself together with tape. I typed, "What did you do?" She replied instantly. "Me? Nothing. Just curious." I typed again, harder. They said I canceled. I didn't. Stop playing. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, maybe you're not as organized as you think. I felt my throat close. That familiar, helpless rage rose up, because Tessa always does this in a way that sounds deniable. Like you can't point to it and say, here, this is sabotage. It's always a nudge, a whisper, a planted seed. But the timing was too perfect. The smug emoji, the way she knew I was there. My hand shook so badly, I almost dropped my phone. I called her. She answered on the first ring, voice bright. Hey, she sang. What did you do? I said, and I hated how my voice cracked. Tessa sighed theatrically. Why are you always accusing me of things? They said I canceled. I hissed. At 8:41, I was on the train. I didn't email anyone. I didn't call anyone. Oh my God, Tessa said like I was exhausting. Maybe the universe is telling you something. The universe doesn't send cancellation confirmations. I snapped and my eyes stung. I could feel people passing behind me, and I forced myself not to cry because crying in a lobby feels like bleeding in public. Did you contact them? A pause, just long enough. Then she said sweetly, I may have helped clarify a few things. My stomach flipped. Clarify what? Tessa laughed softly. Relax. I didn't lie. I just told them what kind of employee you are. You're welcome. My vision went spotty. You don't even know what kind of employee I am. I know you, she said, and her voice hardened a little, the mask slipping. I know you're emotional. You get overwhelmed. You can't handle pressure. And frankly, it would have been embarrassing for you to get in over your head. Are you insane? I whispered. Why would you do that? Tessa made a little noise of irritation. Because you always do this, she snapped. You always try to act like you're better than me. Like you're this little hard-working hero. And then everyone's like, oh, poor Maya, she's trying so hard. It's exhausting. I couldn't breathe. You sabotage me because you're jealous. I'm not jealous, she spat. I'm protecting you. And I'm protecting our family from you making a fool of yourself. I opened my mouth to scream at her, but at that exact moment, the receptionist's voice called across the lobby. Maya? One moment. I turned, heart hammering. A man in a dark suit was walking toward me from the elevators, holding a tablet. He looked up, eyes scanning, then landed on me. He smiled politely, professional smile, and something about his face hit my memory like a punch. Ethan. My lungs stopped. For a second, all I could do was stare. His hair was a little shorter than I remembered. There were faint lines at the corners of his eyes. He looked tired but steady. The same calm presence I remembered from dinners where Tessa would throw verbal grenades, and he'd quietly change the subject. He approached, stopping at a respectful distance. Maya, he asked. I didn't answer fast enough, and he added gently, Hi, I'm Ethan. On the phone, Tessa was still talking, voice sharp. Are you even listening to me? You always do that thing where you... I pulled the phone away from my ear like it was burning. I didn't hang up. I just let it sit there while Ethan looked at me, eyebrows slightly raised. I started, then swallowed. Ethan's gaze flicked to my phone screen, where Tessa's name was visible at the top. His expression didn't change much, but something in his eyes tightened. Recognition, like he'd just spotted a familiar snake in the grass. I think there's been a mix-up, I blurted because my brain was chaos. They said I canceled. I didn't. Ethan nodded once. I know, he said, and his voice was so calm it almost made me cry on the spot. Can we go upstairs? My body moved before my mind caught up. I followed him toward the elevators, legs shaky. The receptionist watched us, confused. The security guard scanned my badge again. The elevator doors slid open with that soft whoosh that makes everything feel like a movie scene, and I stepped in, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Ethan pressed the button for the 21st floor. The doors closed. The elevator hummed upward. My phone was still connected, and I could hear Tessa's voice muffled through the speaker. Hello? Hello. Are you seriously? Ethan glanced at it. You can hang up, he said quietly. My fingers fumbled, and I hit end call. The silence afterward felt heavy, like the air got thicker. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The elevator display ticked up. 14, 15, 16. My palms were slick with sweat. I kept thinking, this is insane. This is not real. This is my sister's ex-husband. This is my interview. Finally, Ethan said, She contacted HR this morning. My stomach clenched. She admitted it, I said, voice low. Kind of. In her way. Ethan exhaled through his nose like he'd heard that exact tone 1,000 times. She emailed from a different account, he said. Not her name, but it was obvious. He paused, jaw tightening slightly. She asked them to cancel on your behalf. Said you were overwhelmed and having a breakdown and wouldn't be able to attend. My face burned with humiliation, even though I knew it wasn't true. Oh my God, I whispered. Ethan kept his gaze forward, but his voice softened. I am sorry. I didn't realize she knew you had an interview here until the email came through. When I saw your name on my schedule, he glanced at me. I asked HR to forward me the messages. I stared at him. Why? Ethan's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. Because I've seen her do this, he said simply. And because it didn't sound like you. The elevator dinged. The doors opened to a bright hallway with framed photos of corporate events and motivational posters that made me want to roll my eyes, even in crisis. Ethan guided me toward a conference room, past people walking with coffees, past a row of glass offices. Everything looked normal up here, which made my internal chaos feel even louder. Inside the conference room, Ethan pulled out a chair for me like we were at a dinner party and not in the middle of a family landmine. Do you want water? He asked. I nodded because if I spoke, I might start sobbing. He poured me water from a jug and slid it across the table. My hands shook as I lifted the glass. Ethan sat down across from me, placed his tablet on the table, and looked at me. Really looked. First, he said, calm and clear, you did not cancel your interview. You're here. So we're doing it. I blinked rapidly. But HR, I'm the hiring manager for this role, he said. HR handles scheduling, but I decide who we interview and hire. He paused. Second, you're not responsible for your sister's behavior. You don't have to defend yourself to me. I already know what she's like. A laugh almost burst out of me, sharp and disbelieving. That's weirdly comforting. Ethan's mouth lifted slightly. I know. The steadiness of him cracked something in me. Tears welled in my eyes anyway, humiliatingly fast. I pressed my fingers to my cheek as one slipped out. I'm sorry, he whispered. Don't, he said gently. Seriously, don't apologize. I took a shaky breath and forced myself to straighten up. Okay, I said, voice rough. Okay, interview. Right. Ethan nodded like I'd just agreed to a normal Tuesday. Tell me about yourself, he said, and it should have felt ridiculous. Like, what do you mean, tell you about myself? You've seen me at Christmas dinners, but it didn't. It felt like a lifeline. Something structured. Something I could do. So I did it. I talked about my previous role, the campaigns I'd coordinated, the messy spreadsheet systems I'd built that made my team faster. I talked about getting laid off and what I learned from it without turning it into a sob story. I talked about how I work under pressure, which felt darkly ironic considering I was actively shaking from familial sabotage. Ethan listened, taking notes, asking real questions. Not the fake gotcha interview questions, actual questions about process, problem solving, how I'd handled difficult stakeholders. At one point he asked, tell me about a time you handled conflict. I hesitated. My brain flashed to my sister's text. How's your little interview going? Face-blowing kiss I swallowed. I grew up in a house where the loudest person controlled the mood, I said carefully. So, I got really good at reading people. De-escalating. Choosing words. Sometimes that's a strength. Sometimes it means I let people walk over me. I looked up. I've been working on the second part. Ethan's gaze stayed steady. Good answer, he said quietly. Halfway through, the door opened slightly and a woman from HR peeked in, looking anxious. Ethan, she started. Ethan held up a hand without looking away from me. We're in the middle of an interview, he said, polite but firm. We'll talk after. The door closed. My heart hammered again. Am I getting someone in trouble? I asked because my brain always tries to blame me for other people's mess. Ethan shook his head. No, he said. HR did what they thought was appropriate based on the email they received. The issue is the person who sent it. The issue is my sister, I thought. My mouth tightened. We finished the interview, and I sat back, exhausted like I'd run a marathon in heels. Ethan set his pen down and studied me for a second. Do you have any questions for me? He asked. I almost laughed. I had a million questions, none of them about salary bands or growth opportunities. But I forced myself to ask the normal ones. Team structure, priorities, what success looks like in the first 3 months. Ethan answered them smoothly. Then there was a pause, and I could feel the whole room holding its breath. Ethan leaned back slightly. I'm going to be blunt, he said. My stomach flipped. Okay. I was already leaning toward hiring you based on your resume, he said. Your experience fits what we need, and your references checked out. He paused, eyes steady. But what happened this morning confirmed something for me. You didn't panic. You came anyway. You showed up. And you handled it without turning it into a spectacle. I stared at him, not trusting my ears. Ethan continued, I'm not hiring you out of spite toward your sister. I don't do that. His jaw tightened briefly. But I am hiring you because you're qualified and because I know the kind of resilience it takes to keep moving when someone like her tries to pull the rug out. My throat closed. Are you saying? I'm saying, he cut in gently. If you want the job, it's yours. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. I whispered, and my voice shook. Yes, I want it. Ethan nodded once, like it was settled. Good, he said. Then, after a beat, HR will send the offer letter today. We'll get you on board as soon as possible. I stared at my hands because I didn't know where to put my emotions. I felt like crying and laughing and throwing up all at once. Thank you, I managed. Ethan's expression softened slightly. You're welcome, he said. And he waited until I looked up. If your sister contacts anyone here again, forward it to me. Don't engage. Okay. My chest tightened again, but this time it was relief mixed with something new. Power, maybe. Or just the beginning of it. I nodded. Okay, I said. I left the building in a daze. The sunlight outside was too bright. The street noise felt far away. I sat on a bench across from the tower and stared at my phone like it might bite me. I had 12 missed texts from Tessa. Hello. Did you go home? You're being dramatic again. Answer me. Maya, you're embarrassing yourself. Then at the bottom, one message that made my stomach twist with pure rage. I did you a favor. You're welcome. I didn't reply. For the first time in my life, I didn't immediately jump into the dance of defending myself. I just sat there and breathed until my hands stopped shaking. Then I called Mom. Mom answered with instant worry. How did it go? I swallowed hard. It got canceled, I said. Mom gasped. But I added quickly because the truth was wild. It didn't actually get canceled. The interviewer was Ethan. Silence. Then Mom said very softly, oh. And I continued, voice trembling with adrenaline. Tessa did it. She called or emailed or something. She sabotaged it. Ethan knew. He still interviewed me. He hired me. Mom made a sound like she'd been punched in the chest. She what? I stared at the street. She texted me while I was in the lobby, I said. She knew. She admitted it in her weird little way. Mom's voice went tight. I told her, she whispered. My heart dropped. Mom, I am sorry, Mom rushed. She called last night and acted nice. She asked what you were doing this week, and I didn't think. I closed my eyes. My anger flared, but it wasn't at Mom, not really. It was at the way Tessa could pull information out of people like she was extracting it with tweezers. It's okay, I said, though my jaw ached from holding back words. I got hired anyway. Mom exhaled shakily. I'm proud of you, she said. And I'm so sorry. After I hung up, I sat there for another minute. Then I did something I'd never done before. I blocked Tessa. Just like that. Not as a dramatic announcement. Not as a you'll regret this. Just block. The screen went quiet. My body felt lighter and nauseous at the same time, like I'd finally stepped off a moving treadmill and my legs didn't know what to do. Of course, blocking her didn't erase her from my life. It just changed how she could reach me. She showed up at Mom's house that night. Mom told me later that Tessa stormed in like a tornado, mascara perfect, voice sharp. Why is Maya ignoring me? She demanded. What did she tell you? Mom, apparently, found a spine I didn't know she had. What did you do? Mom asked. Tessa scoffed. Nothing. Mom stared at her. Did you contact that company? Tessa's face tightened. Oh my God, she snapped. You're taking her side. I'm taking the side of basic decency, Mom said, voice shaking. Why would you try to ruin her interview? Tessa's eyes flashed. Because she's pathetic, she spat. She's always playing the victim. And she's not even good at those jobs. She'll embarrass us. Mom's voice went cold. You embarrassed yourself, she said. According to Mom, Tessa went very quiet, like a child realizing the usual tricks weren't working. Then she did the thing she always does when she's cornered. She went for the deepest cut. You're just mad because Ethan likes Maya more than he ever liked me, she said, smiling cruelly. Mom slapped her, not hard enough to be dramatic, but hard enough to make the sound echo in the kitchen. Mom has never slapped anyone in her life. The fact that she did it now tells you how long this has been building. Tessa held her cheek, eyes wide with outrage, then grabbed her bag and stormed out, shouting something about how we're ungrateful and jealous. Jealous. The irony could have powered the grid. The next morning, I woke up to an email from HR at Redbridge with an offer letter attached. My name spelled correctly. A salary higher than I expected. A start date. Benefits. The whole thing looked so normal it almost made me laugh because nothing about how we got here was normal. I signed it with shaking hands. I started the job 2 weeks later. My first day, I wore the same blazer from the interview like it was armor. I arrived early and stood outside the building breathing in cold air, trying to convince my nervous system that it was safe. When I got upstairs, Ethan greeted me like any other new hire. Professional. Warm. No weird personal vibes. He introduced me to the team, showed me where the kitchen was, handed me a laptop. He didn't bring up Tessa. He didn't ask me to gossip. He treated me like I belonged, which felt strangely emotional after a lifetime of feeling like my own sister wanted me shrunk. And then, around lunchtime, Ethan pulled me aside briefly. Just so you know, he said quietly, I forwarded your sister's email to legal. Not to pursue anything dramatic, just to have it documented. If she tries this again anywhere, it's on record. My stomach twisted. Is she in trouble? I asked because, again, my brain tries to minimize. Ethan's expression stayed calm. She made a choice, he said. Choices have consequences. I nodded slowly, and for the first time, I let myself accept that. I didn't cause this. I didn't invite it. I didn't deserve it. She made the choice. Later that week, I unblocked Tessa, just for a minute, long enough to send one message. 1. No paragraphs. No back and forth. I know it was you. I got hired anyway. Don't contact my workplace again. Then I blocked her again before I could see her reply, because I didn't want her words in my body. I didn't want the spike of adrenaline. I wanted peace more than I wanted closure. Mom says Tessa is telling people a new story now. That Ethan humiliated her. That I stole her life. That I manipulated him. It's almost funny how predictable she is. Like a script she keeps reusing because it used to work. But the difference is, I'm not auditioning for her approval anymore. Sometimes, when I'm walking into Redbridge with my coffee in hand and my badge swinging from my lanyard, I catch my reflection in the glass doors and I think about that moment in the lobby, me gripping the desk, heart dropping, feeling erased. I think about how close I was to leaving, to going home and curling up in bed and letting the shame swallow me. And then I think about Ethan's calm voice in the elevator saying, I know, like someone finally saw the truth without me having to beg for it. The weirdest part is, I don't even feel triumphant. I feel tired, like I've been carrying Tessa's chaos on my back for years, and someone finally took 10 pounds off without asking. And I know this isn't the end. Tessa doesn't lose gracefully. She'll look for new ways to poke, to provoke, to punish. But now there's something I didn't have before. Proof. Witnesses. A boundary I actually enforced. She tried to shut a door in my face, and instead she accidentally led me to someone who recognized her tactics immediately. I don't know if that's karma or coincidence or just dumb luck. All I know is this. For the first time in my life, my sister tried to erase me and the world didn't cooperate.